And we're recording. Welcome to the Burst My Bubble Mama and the Wild Man podcast number 2. Say hello, Mom.
Hi, how you doing?
People like the mental health related posts, so I'm going to discuss something I get. It's a catastrophe regarding HIV. I'm gonna give you today's catastrophe. I was walking through the park to get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, as you can see, and there was a sketchy man in the park. As you know, there are a lot of sketchy people in the park, right?
There are a lot of people, homeless people sleeping in the park, yes.
Right, I didn't want to be blunt, but yeah. So as I was walking past the sketchy man, like an object flew into my eye. It could have been debris from the road, but I'm catastrophizing. Could I have contracted something life-changing from that debris? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, from a medical standpoint, HIV is extremely difficult to get. It's blood on blood or body fluids to body fluids, and a significant amount. It's usually contracted with, IV drug use, or, it's not catastrophizing in New York City right now. There are so many drug addicts and homeless people and meth heads on the street. And there's needles all over the city right now.
Right. If you step on, right. Like I'm not doing anything high risk, and I didn't step on anything. Like somebody said on my channel, it's blood to blood contact. So I mean,
it's blood to body fluids. Also,
it's usually transmitted through blood transfusions, sharing drug use, or sex, and I'm not doing anything high risk that will lead to that. So
behavior, right? Yeah,
so, a bug flying into your eye while you walk past a sketchy man. HIV is a fragile virus. You're most likely not going to contract it in that way.
Right. I had diluted medical instruments that were from an HIV positive patient splash into my eyes, and I was fine. So, because it was diluted with solution. So, it really takes a significant amount of the virus strong and ready, and in blood to blood. So yeah, it's not that easy to get. People think it is, but it's not.
Yeah, it's just an overwhelming catastrophizing panic attack. I don't know why I get it. I'm told, I'm told according to psychoanalysis from Dr. Natural, he says it's related to getting bullied in my childhood. I feel unsafe everywhere. Even the HIV potential virus is bullying me. So he thinks it's related to getting bullied and feeling unsafe.
Okay, so let's continue on. So what else do you share?
Do you have any topics you'd like to discuss?
Well, I think one that the audience.
Let's talk about my goal with these posts.
Why don't we always focus on?
I know some people on my channel were saying, "Let your mom talk." I tend to just talk all over you, and
Well, you also tend to make it all about you. So why don't we talk about things that are affecting everyone today, and that is lockdown and isolation due to the coronavirus. A lot of people are having struggles, especially people that are in a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe on the 20th floor in Manhattan. Think about how that would affect somebody that's not working now, that was working, and they've been, basically isolated. How hard that is. Talk about your thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, social isolation, especially for people who struggle with mental illness, is very bad. According to my doctor, socialization is so important. Humans are social animals. We're meant to socialize. We're meant to interact. When we don't have socialization, daydreams and delusions increase, for me at least. And that's why going out into the real world, getting a grasp on reality, socializing is so important. And unfortunately, with coronavirus, we have a pandemic threat to us that can potentially harm. I think I might have had it back in February, but
did you hear that the 80-year-old golfer in Florida, I think Fort Lauderdale, Florida, him and his wife had it in March, and beginning of March, and she had no symptoms. She was asymptomatic, and both 80, and he had a little scratchy throat and a tiny little cough, and they both were positive or tested with antibodies. So isn't that interesting that that it was down in Florida in March, and people were getting it and they didn't even know. So how many people have gotten it and thought they had a little cold?
As I've said on this channel before, in late January, like January 31st-ish, early February, I was the sickest I've ever been in my life. I wrote it off as the flu, but it was very unlike the flu. And I was in bed for, you know, and I was just really sick. And I thought it was the flu, but you know, thinking back to the coronavirus, could I have been one of the first? And I was going into New York City, you know, frequently.
You could have been like patient zero.
Yes, I mean, do you think I was patient zero, one of the first coronavirus cases? Maybe I should get it.
Yeah, you should really go call the doctor and ask for an antibody test. You just need to. Do you even need? I'm trying to think. You could probably get an antibody test. You would have to go into the doctor's office because they're not going, or a lab. They're not going to do it in Rite Aid. They'll do a COVID test. You actually can pull right up to the window of a drugstore. They hand you the COVID test. You swab it, put it back in, and that's how easy it is to get a test.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I do have antibodies. And my question for you: if you do have antibodies to the coronavirus, can you get it again? Can you get it a second time?
They're not 100% sure. Usually, once the body has made antibodies, unless the virus completely mutates, I mean, usually you can, your body will, you know, recognize the virus again if you're exposed to it, and send out the immune response. But they don't know 100%. This is just a very new virus that is everything is a question. Do we get it from the air? Do we get it from 100% from the air? Do we get it from touching things? Nobody 100% knows. Nobody.
It shows how unpredictable life is. You know, in July, August of 2019, you know, to like March of 2020, it seemed like my life was progressing. I was starting to get independent. I was starting to meet the first real friends of my life, and everything was good. It seemed like it was, you know, I was doing things at the art gallery, and you know, I was going to potentially get a job as a peer specialist, and things were starting to finally progress in my life. And then an unforeseeable event happened, the coronavirus, and it's just like, you know, life is unpredictable. You can plan all you want, but you know, something like the coronavirus can happen.
Doesn't it seem strange? It seems strange to me that this is 2020, right? This is 2020. How could we be so unprepared for this kind of a pandemic? And was it intentional? I mean, this being unleashed onto the world, and I know pandemics happen because they just do. However, we as a country should be much more prepared in 2020. You say this could have happened in the 1800s or the 1700s, but this is 2020. Why weren't we more prepared? It's frightening, but yet, you know, we're dependent and we're all interdependent on each other, you know, and to see this happen and our country locked down, and it amazes me. I mean, to see New York City streets empty is just amazing to me.
This is my theory on the coronavirus. I know some people said it accidentally came from a bat and it was mutation, but I personally think it was invented in a Chinese lab. They were experimenting with bio, you know, weapons, and you know, they didn't intend to spread it, but it got out of control. It spread to their population, then it spread throughout the world. I think it was nefarious. This is my opinion. Obviously, you know, people might say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think I am, and I think people are trying to cover.
Yeah, because I totally agree, because they stocked up on their PPE equipment and all their masks and everything, and they were the ones that had everything, and they contained it to Wuhan. It didn't spread all over China. So why? How they knew it was spreading fast. They knew it got out. I would be frightened to think that they intentionally let it spread to the United States because of the trade sanctions that are put on them by the president, and to try to ruin his chance of reelection. But I 100% believe that. I 100% believe that it was intentional.
Well, I believe they were experimenting with bioweapons. They didn't intentionally let it out because it spread to the Chinese people too. I
No,
think
no, you're wrong. It spread to the Chinese people in Wuhan, then they contained it completely. And it did not go to other places in China. And then they had all the equipment and everything they needed and they didn't warn the rest of the world. Why? Why didn't they warn the rest of the world? Because they knew that supplies would be bought up fast and they would be called out on how could you let this happen? How could you be so sloppy?
all right,
Like we have
let's stop with the conspiracy theorists. I mean, I don't want to get too controversial in regards to government
what
conspiracy.
happened.
Yeah,
But
because
anyway, but the thing for people with mental illness is that being alone, not only a virus is hurting us, but being alone and being isolated, people are getting depression and anxiety and fear is encompassing. And then we have, riots going on in the streets. So people are very frightened to go out, frightened to live their life. So
right.
that's
Okay. So I know you said you don't want me to talk about like past experiences related to mental health, but for whatever reason, I built up like a mask that I wear of anxiety. So when I go into social situations in the coffee shop, in the city, I think a lot of people are this way. They're afraid to behave like themselves. They're shy. They wear a mask of anxiety, hiding themselves. What I need to do is I need to remove the be good mask, show the real Andrew to people, overcome my anxiety, and be myself, right?
I don't think that that's necessarily so unusual that people wear masks. I think we all tend to put our best face on when we go out of our comfort zone.
Well, I think because I was bullied, I almost become so overtaken with panic and social anxiety that I go catatonic and I panic in social situations. So I have extreme social anxiety as a result of getting bullied. What I need to realize is the Andrew behind the anxious mask is very likable. He's a very cool guy. He's very.
But you are. Here, let me give you a quick story. There was a flea market outside, and it was a lovely day. And I was walking through the flea market, and people were selling things, and there were booths, self-help booths, and different booths. One was about some kind of a disease. I don't remember what the disease was. And I was walking past, and I was smiling, which is something, just smiling because it was a beautiful day. And I remember this so intensely because it was a bully. And I remember the woman saying to me, just looking at me and saying, "What do you think this is funny?" And like, my smile had nothing to do with what she was handing out or what cause I was just smiling about the day. So you see how sometimes people can read or misread somebody's facial expressions or body language?
She could have been miserable too and sensed your happiness, sensed your good vibrations, and she could have been trying to like make you upset.
And she did. It did bother me that she snapped at me like that. And I tried to say, well, I'm not smiling about the cause, that I'm just and it was so disturbing to have somebody comment to me like that and to bring down my mood. So,
I'm going to share a story that's very similar to that. I was in Starbucks a few years ago now. I don't know how many years ago, but I was, standing, waiting to approach the counter. So I was standing like kind of back from the counter, but it was my turn to go up. But I was smiling, daydreaming, happy,
mm-hmm.
And then this customer says to me, "Just go up to the counter," like in a nasty kind of way. And it was kind of
that irritates me.
It was kind of like he just sensed the happiness, he sensed the good vibrations, and he was just being mean for no apparent reason. And it's kind of like,
mean-spirited people. A bully. There's plenty of bullies in the world. I remember being at a ball game. It was a little boy, about 11 years old, and he was trying to buy a hot dog, and he was reaching over another man. And the man just started yelling at this like little kid for no reason. Like the little kid was so excited. And because he was a child, and I went wild on this man. I wasn't involved, but I said, "Who the hell do you think you are? This is a kid. Leave him alone. You know what? Get the F out of here if you're going to be such a miserable piece of crap." Mm-hmm. Because nobody has the right to do that to anybody. And I hate bullies. There isn't anything that I hate more in this world is bullies.
Right.
And unfortunately, some people get off on being bullies. They just, it feeds an insecurity and a deficiency in their person.
And you know what I found? Like sometimes people can be very mean and bully-like to you your entire life, and then when you do something to assert yourself or something, you feel bad for them, but like it's like they never felt bad for you. You know what I mean?
That's because they're sociopaths. They don't have the capacity to feel. They have a sociopathic type personality because they don't have. That's what makes them bullies, because they don't have the ability to feel any responsibility for the things that they do, and that just makes them crappy people.
So you retaliate, and you see the pained expression on their face, and you feel guilty, you feel bad, but then you think back, and you're like, this person never felt any empathy, and they were bullying me, and it's kind of like it was, you know what I mean? It's kind of like. Do I think
some people sometimes don't realize that they're bullies? I do. I think some people just have abrasive kind of personalities, and like I had a girlfriend, and she was a childhood friend, but as she started getting older, we grew up together, and we fell apart, our friendship. But she always would do things as she started getting older, like you'd say something like, "Oh, do you think?" "No, really?" Like she was sarcastically rude. Like everything that you would say, like she would challenge or. And you know what? That's exhausting. People like that to me are exhausting. They're high maintenance, and I cut them out of my life because I don't need somebody to make me feel on edge. That's a high maintenance person. So I think the key for mental health, I think, is to surround yourself with positive, happy, loving people that give you the same respect, and to stick up for yourself in every situation. Look, in a job situation, bullies, they say the majority of management is sociopaths. And that's how they get into management, because they don't feel any empathy for people.
High functioning sociopaths. Okay, so for whatever reason, I was bullied. Are you coughing? So for whatever reason, I was bullied, and I developed a severe mental illness where I daydream because of the social isolation. Okay, so to recover, I need to socialize. Get a grasp on reality. Do things in the real world, like socialize in the real world. And that's what I'm doing at the Psychosocial Clubhouse. I mean, it's meant for socialization. And, unfortunately, I'm a little bit of a dependent man-child at the moment. I'm dependent on my parents financially because of what happened to me and because I developed a severe mental illness. So, I mean, getting a job, getting independent, financially, getting, and that's very important to improve my life too, right?
Yes, it is. Look, if, God forbid, the support system that you had wasn't there, you would be basically thrown into a type of situation where you would have to deal with the amount of support that you have, and you could, and you would. It's not that difficult. It seems, because if you don't do it every day, you don't do all the little things that add up to independence. If you don't do that every day, it seems overwhelming, but it's really not. It's just a click. You can click on your mouse, and you pay a bill. You call in your prescriptions. You do your laundry. You do, and basically that's life. That's living.
Since July of 2019, July of last year, I moved into this apartment-like area, which I jokingly called the Maniac Man Cave. And I began getting independent in so many ways. I started meeting the first real friends of my life, as I said again. I'm doing tasks. I even recently drove to the auto shop and handled the entire car situation by myself. I'm doing my dishes. I'm doing my laundry. And
that's an independent man.
I'm doing my medication, like filling my medication, and I'm getting independent. Obviously, at the moment, I'm dependent on you financially, and I mean, no. I sort of am, because you are in control of the money, but I think
No, the government is in control of the money.
Right. That's what Dr. Natural says. When I say my mom is in
control of the money,
that's what Dr. Natural says. The government is providing you with money. Your mom might, give you the money that the government is in control of. Was it?
No, it's okay.
Okay, but your mom might give you the money, but it's not your mom's money that she's giving you. It's the government that's giving you the money. And he truly believes, especially with the blurring fantasy and reality delusions that I get. I truly need it. It's no, obviously I'm struggling with severe mental illness. Pause it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm resuming recording. Okay, my mom had an interruption with my aunt. Yeah, I'm gonna lightheartedly say this. I'm not being critical, but sometimes, I'll be in the car with my mom, or and my aunt will call, and it's kind of annoying when somebody has a conversation with somebody else when you're in the room. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, yes, I do, and that has been done to me. It was actually a very serious topic. Otherwise, I would have just said, "I'm call you right back."
Right. I know I've had friends years ago. I'm not going to name names, but they would, be on the cell phone the entire time, making calls, text messages while you're with them.
Yes, that is something that it hurts your feelings. It's like, I'm not important enough for you to engage in this conversation.
It's like if you don't want to be here, just leave. It's like
right. Yes. Or I've had people say to me just recently, and tell me if you've had this, but I've had people say to me, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do," and they don't include you, and it's like, well, why are you saying that to me and not including me? Like, it's kind of insulting. But I guess as you age, and this is where I can put an age perspective in, as you age, you're less and less affected by other people because you just don't care. And I think that comes with age. I do.
And I guess the moral of the story is, if you're with somebody, a friend, give the person, you're with the time of
undivided attention.
Right. Undivided. Obviously, if there's an emergency or something,
Well, that wasn't cool. So
I'm not saying that wasn't the example. It just sparked some. I thought, I'm mostly talking about friends who are on their phone the entire time, and it's kind of like,
Well, I know people that at the dinner table, if they're eating or whatever, they'll say phones in the basket, and just get rid of the phones, because everybody will have their phone at the dinner table and nobody's looking at anybody. And to me, why even bother going out if you're not going to look and converse? And the socialization of today's young people is terrible. Texting, I hate texting, because texting, you can take the information wrong. It can be read wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. I sometimes go out with friends, mostly, and sometimes they're just always on their phone, and saying just phones in the basket. You can talk to whoever after. It's not going to be an emergency during
dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty much anything that is you can wait to the hour. You know what I mean? Obviously
right.
There are emergencies, but what happened prior to cell phones? You get home and then you discover it.
Right. Right. Or if you were like, I remember being in class, and if somebody had an emergency with their kid or whatever, or their parent, they would call the school, and the school would get in touch with the professor. So, if they really needed to get to you, they could get to you.
Back to the HIV catastrophizing. I'm trying to let it go. I'm trying to realize, it was probably some debris from the road that flew into my eye, and it wasn't like it wasn't Sketchy Man, but I'm catastrophizing like my eye right here. I'm thinking, do I have something bad in my eye? I tried rinsing it out when I got home. I need to just let it go. It's just really
very, very hard when you have that kind of, they call it an OCP. It's an OCP personality type. It's very hard when you have that personality to let things go. You kind of want to keep thinking about them, because it relieves a certain, you need that relief of that anxiety feeling about, but logic, the best thing to do is hit it with logic, and logic says that that's not a situation that needs to be ruminated about.
Oh, okay. And last night, here was another example of HIV catastrophizing. So I went for a walk around the neighborhood, and I absentmindedly started biting my toenails when I got home. One of the toenails went into my tongue, and I started catastrophizing. Could something have been on my feet? And you know, when I mentioned this to a friend, she acknowledged the absurdity of it. But she said, you could probably get some sort of like grimy, but that's not how you get HIV.
Fungus or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it made everybody laugh because they're like, that sounds so gross. What were you doing? But it's like, that's not how you get HIV. But I'm like saying it like in a catastrophizing panic way. Like, could I have gotten HIV from biting my sweaty feet? They're like, what?
You don't want to tell people.
Yeah, I know. I'm like saying it because I'm panicking, but like everybody like reads the panic and they're like, what?
Why are you biting your feet? That's a nervous compulsion.
Right.
Nail biting.
Like even I'm walking to Starbucks down the block, or Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like imagining there's like hypodermic needles on the ground. I don't know why this HIV panic attack. Maybe I should tell my doctor because I just
because there's a fear of doom, like that everything that comes in contact with you is going to produce a doomsday, and that shadow there's they say that there's these you can buy them actually on Amazon. Not that I'm promoting Amazon because I don't promote any of these.
They're an evil dystopian corporate. I like Amazon.
We don't like any of these big companies, but that you can buy these self-help books, that workbooks that actually help you work through these type of things. So that is something for people to know, that you can buy online these self-help books, and they're workbooks. They're actual workbooks to help you work on these things that sometimes get us stuck. We get stuck, and everybody does. It's not, whether you're stuck on a depressive kind of feeling or whether you're just, it gives you ideas of how to come out of things if you don't necessarily have a therapist or a doctor or a group available to discuss with you the things that are you're struggling with. And channels like this, where people are discussing openly and honestly feelings and fears and illnesses that they have, or pieces of their illnesses that they have struggles with.
People with similar interests, like going to NAMI, going to the Psychosocial Clubhouse, or like pursuing comedy. People with similar interests can actually be very supportive and help you. So I mean,
because they understand. Because they understand.
Right.
Maybe not exactly the same thing that you're going through, but very close. A lot of these things are very interrelated, or there's comorbidities. There's different, there's different aspects of the illnesses that they suffer. I know people that are in AA. A lot of times they have, several diagnoses, comorbidities, and they go to several different meetings, but the message is a lot of times the same, in these groups, and it's owning up.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
According to my friend, like the Psychosocial Clubhouse, NAMI, people with severe people who have struggled tend to be more empathetic than people who haven't experienced negative life situations. So for example, at the Psychosocial Clubhouse, it's kind of like, you go into New York City, everybody's mean, cold, miserable, negative. Like the workforce is like very like cutthroat to be, but you go to the Psychosocial Clubhouse, everybody's all empathetic, everybody's all kind. It's like an alternate dimension in New York City. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like two different worlds. Like I was listening to a host on from New York City, working in New York City, and she was talking about how she was rushing to work in New York City, and the key word here is rushing. People are always stressed when they're rushing. And she said she was online in Starbucks to get her Starbucks so she could get into work. And the guy in front of her ordered a hot chocolate or something and she was like angry and irritable at the guy because he ordered something that wasn't going to be quick. Like, so you see how people get, like in New York, it's such a high stress environment that, you know, I think it's almost hard for people to be like for instance, when we walk around, when we would go down to NYU, and we'd walk from Penn to NYU on First, sometimes my husband would stop, you know, just stop in the middle, you know, the flow, you know how the flow of Manhattan is, where everybody just keeps moving. And if the light changes, you don't stop because people will just like fall over you. They just keep walking.
Right. This is a very valid point. Like when I go to the subway, for example, you know, I'm clearly a tourist. So not a tourist, but I'm clearly not a New Yorker as of this moment. So like when I go to the subway terminal, like round table, I'll try to swipe my card and I won't get it on the first swipe. So like the people behind you will start getting impatient. You're trying to swipe, and it takes me like 10 times, I'm exaggerating, but it takes me like 10 times to do it. And people are like, I'm going to another turn, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they get really irritable. And like a couple of times, like the people almost like flipped over them because they're moving, they're booking down that street. And when he stops and like he's looking around like a tourist, oh, people get so angry. I mean, like, or if he touches somebody, like that's like, you just don't touch anybody in New York City.
New Yorkers like, don't say hello to me, don't smile at me.
Don't smile. And he's like, hi, smile. And everybody, he's such a southerner, you know what I mean?
I know. And it's like when you're at the subway turnstile, it's like, all right, just do it quickly. And it's just like, yeah, New Yorkers are very unfriendly.
And you have to keep moving. Because if you don't keep moving, you're afraid like either somebody will hit you with a baseball bat or something, you know?
Right.
Or spray you with mace because you just feel like, okay, you didn't keep moving, they're going to run right over you or push you onto the subway tracks, you know? Like I'm terrified when I'm in the city.
Right. Okay, let's discuss, you know, realistic plans and what I'm trying to do. So as you know, since I didn't have a job, since I didn't have friends, my vision was, you know, creating sensational social media posts in an attempt to go viral and make myself a Hollywood superstar. I mean, that's kind of like no secret, right?
Right, but that's kind of like a
pipe dream.
A fantasy, yeah.
A pipe dream fantasy, according to Dr. Natural. So I was trying to make my posts, you know, more attention-grabbing, more sensational. And you know what Dr. Natural says? You know, lose the comic book, you lose the Joker gimmick, lose the wrestling character, and, you know, I'm going to start working on an academic paper with him, and that's grounded in reality. Get a job at the Psychosocial Clubhouse, pursue comedy locally, because, you know, I'm making sensational videos over and over and over again. I get very few views, you know, screaming loudly I mean, like, even as I'm saying this, I'm double bookkeeping because I believe, you know, there is an undercover major motion picture company, undercover celebrities viewing my channel, and they're going to wave their magic wand when I get well, and we're going to...
No. What, don't double book and single book.
Because I'm able to rationally explain what Dr. Natural tells me.
Right.
But down deep, I believe there is a major motion picture company viewing me.
You're single booking now. You're single booking. We're single booking right now.
I'm not single bookkeeping because down deep, I believe people are watching me.
No, take it, and take it out and put it over here. Put it away. Because only by single booking are you going to achieve good goals, reality-based goals. That's what everybody has to do. Because I'm not saying that we can't have goals in life, but they have to be realistic. And you can reach for the stars, but everybody kind of settles somewhere in the middle.
Right, you know, and but it's kind of like a fantasy land, you know, because I didn't have friendships, and ever since meeting friends at the Psychosocial
but if you...
Let me finish. Ever since meeting friends at the Psychosocial Clubhouse, the need for the fantasy pop superstar like friends has diminished. So, you know, I didn't have friends, I didn't have a job, and I was home all day. So I was living in an internet, you know, wonderland, fantasy land, you know, rabbit hole sort of like fantasy land.
Okay. But now you're not. Now you're not. Now you know.
I still have the desire to hold on to the daydreams because it was my source of self-esteem. But like Dr. Natural says, it's kind of like the book I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. I never promised you living in the real world would be rainbows and butterflies. I never promised you peaches and cream. The real world can be hard. You know, you're not a Hollywood superstar in the real world. But unfortunately, if you live in your fantasy land when, you know, your support system can no longer take care of you, you know, I never promised you the real world would be a rose garden. You're going to work as, you know, at a supermarket, you know, but you're not going to be a Hollywood A-lister. But, you know, unfortunately, it's like the Joanne Greenberg book. Unfortunately,
but then you're in, but thank goodness, then you're in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, to have a life, you need to live in the real world. Your fantasy, your daydream world isn't going to protect you from the inevitable future that your support system will go away, and you can blind yourself to it and try to live in a daydream world, but
you can tick the boxes, and most people that do suffer with illness, they have a very creative side. So you can tick those boxes, and hopefully because you happen to be a very intelligent person, and some people are and some people aren't. Some people can do art, some people can't, some people can do, but going around and speaking about mental illness and about where it starts and when it starts and the age that you are and how things affect, and talk about bullying. You know, at some point, talking about mental illness in high schools or maybe even junior highs. And if you write this journal, you know, maybe you won't be the celebrity in Hollywood, but who the F would want to be in Hollywood? They're all a bunch of nut jobs, and I'm talking evil.
Right. That's the point. You want to be a positive, you know, like help people in the mental health community. Don't be like,
and also, yeah, don't be selfish. Satisfy that inner peace. It's to me the satisfaction of helping people and
don't be self-serving. Try to help people, basically.
Yeah, and that will, when you help people, you help yourself.
And you look at all these rock stars, these pop superstars, these entertainers and movie stars. They're all like the dumbest people. You know what I mean?
They're dumb and selfish. They're dumb, selfish, and they're dumb, selfish, and unhappy.
I want to be an intellectual, kind of, you know, write academic papers. Don't play the Joker character. You know, be a real guy. And like, that's why people like these Burst My Bubble podcasts, because I'm behaving like myself. I'm not playing a sensational character. You know what I mean?
You're intelligent. You don't come across intelligent when you speak like that. You come across like a buffoon, you know, right. And nobody but maybe a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old can really relate to a buffoon character. You know,
men in their early 20s like the comic book movies, the wrestling. And unfortunately, I mean...
No, you can like wrestling. There's nothing wrong with liking wrestling. It's silly, but, you know, if it makes you laugh. But
it really isn't intellectual entertainment. It's appealing to the lowest common denominator. It's appealing to fools, basically. I mean, not fools, young men and people that aren't very intelligent, you know?
Like, I think the art world, like looking at a painting that maybe different people of different periods painted and why, and trying to understand the human mind and how people did things in art and writing, poetry. Like there's a poem called Remember Me. I think Christina Rossetti wrote the poem Remember Me. And I love the poem because it's a very short poem, but it spoke to me when I was in junior high. I was a young, maybe even grammar school. And I remember the person who wrote it, and I remember the name of the poem because it spoke to me. And if you read the words, it's so powerful. Like just a few lines of powerful poetry. That's an intellectual talent that I feel like sometimes is underrated. I think beautiful music, beautiful theater, ballet, opera, but especially dancing and ballet is an expression also of inner beauty. Art, poetry, dance is all inner beauty.
Right. And that's a good point. I was going with, you know, friends recently to intellectual, like, you know, movies, not the high budget pop culture, you know, pop movies, you know, that are high budget that everybody's watching, like Avengers Endgame, like the Marvel movies, where it's kind of like, you know, they mass produce them, they release a new movie every year, and it's just quick cash-ins. I was going to movies that they spent a lot of time developing. It's an intellectual movie. It's very artsy. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I mean, why do you want to watch these cheap cash-in movies? You want to see something that's a work of art. You want to see something that's a masterpiece. You don't want to see these.
And reading, like, say, Tolstoy or I love the Bronte sisters and Jane Austen and the classic novels of our times, and of Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. I just love reading his language and dissecting exactly what he means. Everything that we do today, and a lot of psychology in what Shakespeare says, like the snake with the flowering face. I mean, how many people use that? The snake is hiding behind the smiling, flowering face, but there's a snake behind them. So, or methinks the man protests too much. That's so true. When somebody's saying to you, oh, I didn't do that. I would never do that. I would never do that. You know that deep inside, that's a psychological cover-up for that they really did do it. You know what I mean?
Speaking of the snake with the flowering face, that's something I talk about in therapy with Dr. Natural a lot, like the monster behind the mask, somebody that's two-faced. So often there are people that put on like a front that they're a loving person, but behind the mask, they're monstrous.
Yeah. Do you remember Julius Caesar? Did you read that in school? Julius Caesar with being stabbed in the back.
At two Brute. Yeah, they were stabbed in the back by Brutus. Yeah. So even people that you think are on your side can betray you. I mean, there was definitely.
But you also want to believe and surround yourself. And I think as we age,
and sometimes, why do I have this monster behind an innocent mask fantasy? I'm told it came from childhood bullying. But that's something that happens to me all too well. My moods switch rapidly from this person is a loving, best friend, to this person's monstrous, to this person's. I mean, most of the time I think people are loving. Most of the time I think people love me, but it affects my ability to have meaningful relationships, because when you villainize somebody, think they're sadistic monsters, and then you go back to loving them, it's kind of like you kind of traumatize them because you view them as.
Yeah, you do. And you can't. You have to be able to.
You can't have these mood swings. Tell yourself, no. There I go again. These people love me. All evidence shows they love me. They're not sadistic monsters. I mean, most of the time I'm a happy, wholesome Andrew. I think these people are loving. But I get these horrifying panic attacks where I think people are sadistically bullying me, and it's just like, and then I go back to everything's rainbows and butterflies, and it's like, yeah, get out of that.
That's part of an illness process, but I think for people that do suffer swings in moods that happen like that, I think the most important thing is to put up a block, to find a way that works, whether it's getting busy, getting up, getting busy, changing, immediately knowing what you have to do. It's like, for instance, the person overeats. When the pizza comes and it's a 10-piece Sicilian pie, and you love it and you want to have that slice of pizza, but you know that you can't control yourself if it sits on the counter for too long. So you get rid of it, you give it out, and it's no longer there. So just like with a mood, if the mood the mood is going to change, or you feel the mood going to change, or you see it changing, you've got to work on blocks, putting
I mean, eating disorders, and I know I was like really dangerously skinny from late 2005 to 2011, but eating disorders have to do with power and control. You can't control anything else in your life, so you're in control of something, and that is your weight. So I was dangerously skinny. I could have potentially, but I died, but
damaged your body.
Yeah, right. I probably have in some ways, but the reality is I've gotten better with that. I don't know why, whether it's but I don't feel the need to be so skinny anymore. I mean, I eat, but I was scary skinny, And it could have ended badly. Thankfully, it didn't, and I'm still alive and kicking. And I'm going to be 33 in just a matter of days.
And you're going to have many, many podcasts and many, many things to talk about. Hopefully, your paper. Hopefully, maybe even traveling around and speaking and being a peer counselor and helping people help you help them. Does that make any sense?
Right. And I want to look back, when I'm 99 years old, reminiscing about my life and say, yeah, I've had a lot of trauma, I've had a lot of traumatic experiences. Yeah, I've had a lot of bad days, but I've overcome the adversity, made myself a success. I helped people in the mental health community, helped people feel they weren't alone. And hopefully I can look back when I'm, at the end of my life and say, wow, I lived a successful life. I mean, even though I've experienced a lot of trauma, and in the end, I did.
You have integrity. You have integrity, and you will. You have a really, really positive outlook. You'll have integrity and not despair. They say that's the last phase. Forget the hierarchy of needs. It's integrity versus despair. People that don't live a fulfilled life, at the end of their life, they have despair, not integrity. And they feel happy and positive at the end of their life instead of despair that they didn't do what they wanted to do. So you are definitely on your way, because before the coronavirus, you were halfway there.
So something. I mean, as a lot of people know, I'm very funny, as you know. That's actually a coping mechanism. I think we said it in the other podcast, but Dr. Natural says, try to feel some sadness, like realize the struggles you and your support system all went through, and try to feel the sadness about it rather than just making everything one big joke. Because, I'm running from the sadness with laughter. I'm running from the sadness with, the reality is I've experienced a lot of trauma. I had no friendships. I developed a severe mental illness, and it's really sad. It's real, but you know what? I distract myself. I blind myself from it.
Don't people do that? Don't people try to do that from all kinds of trauma in life? They try to distract themselves from sadness, because I find if I focus too much on too many sad things, that it overwhelms me and it engulfs me. Like, you don't want to go too far down that depression route. So yes, I think you have to, like, for instance, somebody asked me the other day, I was sitting where my mom used to sit, and I had a memory flash through my mind, and I didn't want to go there because it was too painful.
Right.
So if something is too painful, and it was actually a memory about what you lived through, and as being, near and dear to my heart, I remember I was in so much pain, and I didn't, about what you were going through, that, as a parent, you take on your child's pain because they're your child. And I remember when my mom was alive, she was in her bed, and I remember the memory that came to me was that I literally crawled into her bed and crawled up to her and put my head on her chest and wept and wept and wept. And I kind of blocked that memory out because it was too painful. And so I think what Dr. Natural is trying to say is that it's okay to weep and feel sad, but then be happy and be positive because of all you've overcome.
But it's okay and basically appreciate your loved ones while they're still here. Because sometimes when your basic human needs aren't being met, you're not socializing, you're dependent, you often get angry. You blame the ones that are closest to you.
You want to blame. You can, because you can get away with that, because most people won't take that. The ones that love you will let you hurt them. They will. They'll let you hurt them.
But empathize and realize how much they love you and how much they provide. Empathize and appreciate them while they're still here, because you don't want to look back with regret. I mean, you want to say, you know what, thank you so much, Mom, for all you've done, and
Right.
It's not even not even just what you've done for me. Just being a great person and just I mean, I just and I actually, believe it or not, I think the Medicaid. I'm starting to get. I mean, don't look back with regret, saying I should have appreciated my mother more. I should have been more loving. I should have been less selfish, and just, like.
But the illness, and this isn't a pass, but the illness sometimes it's hard because people with illness sometimes can't help but focus on what's going on with them. So being able to think outside of yourself and self-reflect is something that's everybody has to work on, but especially
I think when you get independent, you tend to you're able to focus on others more when you get independent, because obviously at the moment, when you're being taken care of like a child, you kind of behave like a child, a baby that's hungry, a baby that's throwing temper tantrums. But if you become independent, you become an adult, you might be like, I'm going to take care of my mother now. I'm going to take care of my parents now, because
I'm going to help the way they helped me.
Right.
Right.
So if you're dependent,
as my parents aged, right, and now we're aging. As my parents aged, we drove them around because their driving was terrible, and I can see the same progression of how things happen. I remember Grandpa kidding around saying, Snowball was in diapers. Remember when Snowball we used to put the little preemie diapers because she had kidney failure?
Right.
And I remember him saying, "Oh, Snowball's in diapers and I'm in diapers," And the interesting thing is we do become, as we get older and older, we become more childlike as we get very, very old, because it's just the progression of life. We go from being a child to ending up childlike. And getting back to the thing that you said about painful memories, and Dr. Natural saying experience a little bit of pain, but then let it go, but don't always be the funny man, because sometimes you do need to think about, I have been through a lot of pain, and it's okay. And it's okay to feel a little grief, not engulf yourself in it. But since losing my mom, I have yet to be able to go to the cemetery and stand there in front of the grave. I just have not been able to do that. I don't know why. Maybe it's the reality of it is too much for me right now, but I have not been able to do that. I just don't want to do that. And is that a denial? Yeah, it is. But I need that right now. I'm not ready. Maybe at some point I'll be ready, but I'm not ready. So
right.
I think sometimes we protect ourselves that way. So, if anybody out there is listening and feels that, that's okay. It's okay to protect yourself, but at some point allow yourself to feel the grief and feel the pain. Cry your tears.
So sometimes a little bit of pain is actually a good thing, because you stop living in denial.
Right. Then you're not in denial, and you're feeling alive. You don't want to get depressed, severe depression, but feel the pain, let yourself feel the pain, and then once you feel it, you can move on from it.
This brings back the topic of medication. I'm on a mega regimen of psychiatric medication. I have been for years. At the last appointment, I slightly reduced the lithium, and I find like I'm coming back alive. I'm starting to have emotions again. I'm starting to feel real. And the medications almost give us like a chemical lobotomy, numbs us to life. And unfortunately, it's good but is all this medication really necessary?
Well, I believe that medication is necessary to keep us stable if we're not stable. I believe that if you replace it with healthy activities that produce the same type of response in us that the medication is doing, like for instance, some people will come off maybe a tranquilizer and they've replaced it with meditation and yoga and deep breathing, but you've got to replace it with healthy ways. Otherwise, all the things that the medication was, let's call it, like you said, numbing, will come, crashing down on us. So we have to make and do things like like what, you know, you were saying, examples, going to groups, going to, you know, socialization, getting out there and being involved. You don't have time then to get into really bad areas. So yeah, I believe that, no, I don't think medication is always 100% the total answer. In some cases,
I mean, purpose, structure, socialization, a life in the real world is more effective than any medication, according to Dr. Natural. But
yes,
unfortunately, sometimes, you know, we will be at home, you know, living in a fantasy land, and, you know, we'll need the medication because of our frustrations living in the fantasy land. But, you know, unfortunately, I mean, you know,
don't you find the more and more structure, purpose, socialization, the less and less you kind of feel you need as much medication?
oh yeah, because you get grounded in the real world.
Yeah. So
If you have a real life, you don't need the
real
medication.
purpose. And if you feel the sneaking in of maybe some things of the past, then you tweak it, and you tweak it a little bit. But I don't think the amounts are needed when you're in the real world. I just don't. I think
Right.
that health, good health. Yeah.
And that's my goal. I'm you know, to come down. I mean, on the medication, and it's going to be a slow process. It's not gonna happen overnight, but at the next appointment with the next appointment with my psychopharmacologist, they'll ask to come down and lithium even more, and hopefully a year from now, you know, I can be on, you know, much less medication, and hopefully you know, have a life in the real world. Hopefully I'm functioning highly. Hopefully I have a job. Hopefully I have money. Hopefully I have independence. Hopefully I have friendships. Maybe I even pursue acting in comedy. And hopefully, you know, good days. I mean, the coronavirus showed us that life is unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. But hopefully good days are on the horizon.
Okay, so let's be positive, and that is what it is.
That is what?
And everybody, and wait, before it is what it is, everybody out there, if you're struggling, reach out to a friend, talk to somebody you haven't talked to in a while, watch a funny movie, do things that make you smile, paint a picture, even if it's with crayons, but do something that makes you feel good, and it comes from your soul. And reach out. We're here for you, right, In?
Oh yeah,
we're here for you. So that is
what it is. Thank you, Mom, for doing this.
Okay, bye.
Bye.